Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be here at your closing ceremony. I'm really pleased that DBS could sponsor this event. I'm not that pleased that they pulled out a photograph of me from about 25 years ago when I had some hair. And it was a little bit more black than it is right now, but such is life. It's unfortunate my travel schedule didn't let me be here earlier this week. On the other hand, I understand that you had the opportunity to visit our Marina Regatta over the weekend, and I hope you had a good time. So did you have a good time? Oh, all right. By the way, little plug. So we really don't run a bank. We spend our time doing events like that. So if you ever want to come and work for a cool company, that's it. All right. I'm actually due to give an award after this, but I thought I would make a few comments. First of all, I just need to congratulate every one of you in this room. Just being selected to join this August Forum is obviously a great honor. And I'm told that you've been sort of selected from a 10x number of people who applied to be part of this talent pool. So that's just fantastic. And you need to give yourselves a pat on the back for having been selected in the first place. I also have been walking around, asking people. I think there's a lot of excitement about many of the proposals that people have worked on in the course of this week. And I have no doubt that several of these proposals will see the light of the day. I hope you gained something from it too. Obviously, met a lot of people, got ideas you could work on. I was going to say, I hope you had a chance to see our beautiful city, country. I'm told that hasn't really been possible for many people, but then I hope you do stay on for a few more days and get to absorb the sights, sounds, and smells of Singapore. It's a fun city. But Singapore has its challenges too. You saw and worked on a few of them, hopefully. Our challenges are actually a small fraction of the challenges that the world faces. The SDGs bring a focus on many of those challenges, but there are different ways of thinking and prisms of thinking about it. Scientists have defined today 9 planetary goals, planetary boundaries that Earth faces, to do with the ozone layer, to do with atmosphere, to do with land use, to do with biodiversity. The scary thing is we've already, as mankind today, exceeded 4 of those planetary boundaries. And we are precious close to exceeding another couple of those, which means that the planet we live on is in severe risk of not being able to keep the stable environment that we've been used to over this entire period of time. There is also the challenge of inequity. I think technology is a tremendous force for good, but technology also brings with it a bigger challenge of creating haves and have-mores. Income inequity is actually being exacerbated in many parts of the world, and it's just an incredible statistic that the top 7 companies in the world, 7 of the top 10 market caps in the world today are technology companies, and the wealth that is concentrated in some of the companies is just gigantic and enormous. So how does society deal with the inequity this creates? And actually the third, Sophia brought this to my mind, I believe one of the biggest challenges we're going to face collectively is the challenge of how does society live and work together in a world of artificial intelligence and robotics. It cannot be regulated. We have to think of a new social order. We have to think of new protocols. We've got to think of new behaviors of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So the world is going to have a lot of challenges, and the reality is that many of these challenges are challenges that you and your generation are going to have to deal with. So the real challenge is ultimately yours. What are you going to do about this? What can you do about this? What can you do to really make an impact in life? Finally, to my mind, it's all about leadership. And obviously, everybody has a take on leadership. When I'm asked about leadership, I really tend to think of it in respect of what I think of as 5 I's. The first of the 5 I's I think of as something called individual accountability. So one of the American presidents used to have this on his desk, saying the buck stops here. Individual accountability is all about taking that baton and running with it, about not accepting that your role is limited to a microcosm or a silo or a space, but recognizing that you have the capacity to make impact and you are accountable for end outcomes. Irrespective of what you do, whether you pursue the project you did here or you go back to real life and do a job, you must take ownership for end outcomes And if you're willing to take ownership for end outcomes, that's a tremendously important characteristic of leadership. The second I tend to think of as initiative. And for me, initiative is the capacity to define your own agenda. You know, you go in, for most of us, you could live your whole life working on an inbox. You go and turn on your PC in the morning, or look at your first set of messages. There are 100 messages. You can spend the whole day working off messages in your inbox, which is working on somebody's agenda. The real trick to leadership is, how do you create your own outbox? How do you define an agenda which is your agenda for impact? How do you define an agenda that says you will leave your job, your world, your community a better place than what you inherited or found? That's initiative. The third I think of as innovation. And to me, innovation is not about creating the new iPhone. Innovation is about a capacity to question the status quo. One of the greatest things that the technology revolution gives us is this understanding that everything can be done differently. So you have to start focusing not on the way things are done, but on what is it that people really need. What is the true job to be done? At DBS, we embraced some years ago this idea of journey thinking. Journey thinking is a short way of saying, what is it that people really want from their lives, and how do we try to achieve those outcomes as opposed to go through processes and procedures that exist because history made them so. So this idea of innovation, which is reimagining and reimagining how things can be done. The fourth I think of as inspiration, and finally it's about taking people with you. Inspiration is not just about leading a bunch of people who are junior or who work for you. Inspiration is about taking people who are peers, taking people who are adversaries, taking people who are seniors, being able to take different parts of society along with you on a journey. And to be able to inspire, you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to sell a vision. You have to be able to take people along into paths and directions they did not even know existed. And finally, to me, the fifth I, perhaps the most important, I think of as intent or purpose. To me, a sense of purpose and a sense of understanding what is your intent, what is the intent of you as an individual, what is your purpose as an organization, what is the purpose of the company you're creating, what is your role on this earth, why have you been born, what do you think you're going to leave behind. An inherent deep understanding of purpose and a willingness to embrace purpose in your individual capacity as well as the capacity as an organization or group of people, that's extraordinarily powerful. So individual accountability, initiative, innovation, inspiration, and intent. I think if you can try and hang on to these, you can make a difference. You can go back from here with your project that you've worked on or different ideas and say, how do I take this, scale this, and make this relevant? Many of us look back, think, and say, hey, can I really make impact at scale? I was privileged, we had an offsite recently. I saw this clip from Zuckerberg from Facebook. And it's a really nice clip. And he talks about the fact that when they started doing Facebook in that college dorm in Harvard, the intent was only to try and create a social platform to connect the students at Harvard. He said, but while we were doing it, late one night, they sat back and said, someday somebody will connect the world. And he pondered and said, I didn't realize then that somebody could be me. You don't realize that somebody could be you. Each one of you has the capacity to create impact at scale. Each one of you has in you the ability to respond to the challenges I talked about earlier. That is your challenge. Can you take hold of that opportunity, that leader within you, that light that you have, and bring it to bear on the problems of this world and the solutions that your generation and the generations after you really need? From all the energy I saw as I walked around the room and some of the people I talked outside, I believe that answer is probably a resounding yes. I think many of you will achieve great things. Many of you have the potential to make a difference. And I look forward, sitting over here, to continue to see how we can support you, but more importantly, bask in the knowledge that we had a role to play in the successes that will come your way. Thank you all. I appreciate it.